Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here today. My name is Chris Kroger. I'm the Associate Dean of Engineering Undergraduate Student Services, and we'll be basically sharing the information with you that we're sharing with your sons and daughters tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. We have the great privilege of being really the first group to meet with the engineering students, as it should be. And so I'm going to give you a summary of what we're telling them so you have an idea. And we're going to have a panel of folks up here who can answer questions that you might have. But first, let me introduce to you the Dean of the McKelvey School of Engineering, Aaron Bobick.
You're not anybody until you've been introduced by Chris Kroger. That's really great. First of all, welcome. I guess 100 people have been probably welcoming you to WashU, so I'll just add my voice there. Well, there was a picture up here a minute ago, but there was a picture up there of Chris and myself and a bunch of other folks. You're going to meet several of those other folks in a bit. I do want to call out Chris because he won't. Chris has been doing this for a while now. Chris? 44? 30, I was going to say 34. I think that's right. Okay. And he's been running engineering undergraduate student services for the vast majority of that. And if you ask most of the students who's the dean of engineering, most of them will tell you DK. Okay? Who's DK? Dean Kroger. And that is absolutely fine. Right? Chris and his team, they're responsible for providing the opportunity for your kids to flourish, providing some guidance to your kids to flourish, and to providing a bit of a safety net as your kids start to sometimes not flourish. But they're really the ones who are going to interface deeply with your students, and you'll hear more from them, and you'll be able to ask questions logistically. My job is to run the whole school. Your children made a decision to attend a really interesting, modest, middle-sized university that is an R1 research university, right? What does that mean? Well, R1 is the highest Carnegie rating in terms of the amount of research that's done. What it means is that research pervades a lot of what we do. And so that takes up quite a bit of my time. You may also find that it takes up quite a bit of your students' time, somewhere around 65%, between 60 and 70 every year, do research in the laboratories, and which is a highly recommended thing, even if they're not going to go on to get a PhD, even if. How many of your kids are thinking of going to med school? Come on, be honest. Okay? They're not being honest. There's more than that, okay, et cetera. And usually about half of them come to their senses. But one of the reasons students like to come to WashU is that by doing that research engagement, first of all, they get a better sense of what that means, and it also is very good for an application. In terms of getting a better sense of what it means, they've probably told you they're going to major in X. I'm going to do this like a comedian. What does your student think they're going to major in? Chemical engineering. Jay's happy. How much chemical engineering did they do in high school? 0. So he really doesn't know, okay? Right. So she. Oh, by the way, 40% of our incoming students are women. Or I should say, right. To be precise, 40% identify as women. It matters. So I always tell people that our job is not to help your kids become who they're going to be. Our job is to help your kids to start to become who they're going to be. And I will tell you that they don't really know. So they're going to see things they've never seen before. All right? And they're going to say, and by the way, and one of the reasons I asked, there are a lot of students on this campus, first-year students, who are thinking about going to med school because their parents are doctors. Or their friends are. It's just a path they understand. Meanwhile, they're going to get exposed to so many paths that they're going to find some and say, I didn't know you could do that. And you start to see movement between them. And the most challenging thing for them to make that move is not going to be to work with Chris's folks to get the major changed. It's not, I mean, some of them may go from engineering to business or arts sci, whatever. Well, that won't be the tough transition. The tough transition is going to be the phone call to you. Say, Mom, you know that computer science thing? Art history is way cooler. Right. And you have to say, that's great. All right. Now, some of them, others over there are going to hear, Mom, you know that art history thing? Computer science is way cooler. And those parents are going to say, phew. Anyway, what the point I'm trying to make is they're striking out on their own, and it doesn't matter how many times they've gone to a summer program or a sleepaway, et cetera. This is their first time that they're thinking about the path that they're taking. And the most challenging thing for them is how you think about it. I have 3 kids, 33, 30, and 28. So we've been there, done that. Some have been quite successful, some less so. And it's amazing that same genes and the paths are so different. But fundamentally, they're going to care about how you think about it. So and in that vein, there's only one other thing I want to share with you, okay? As you all know, WashU is a pretty hard school to get into. The vast majority of your kids are in the top 5% of the high school that they went to. If they're not, it's typically because they went to some very specialized high school. Most of them did very little work to be successful in high school, or if they did it because they wanted to, not because they had to. They are used to being successful, and frankly, for the world not to be an academic challenge. Now, I went to MIT as an undergrad. One of my majors was math. So I can tell you with some certainty that 50% of the students will finish in the bottom half of the class. And yeah, I mean half of you. Right, that's less funny, okay? Your kids, for the first time ever, are going to come out of an exam, and they're going to pretend that it went okay, and then they're going to find out that they got a C, all right? Or they failed. For some of them, this will be the first time they've gotten a C or they have failed. This doesn't mean they're not going to be successful at WashU. Our successful retention rate and graduation rate in engineering is huge. Okay, I mean, for the university as a whole, it's like 95%, 4 or 5 year, right? In engineering, somewhere around 87% of the students who come in as first years get an engineering degree. So some of them leave for, art sci or things like that, but 87 stay. And so the students are going to be successful. But for some of them, this is going to be a challenge like they've never had before. And they're going to be okay with it if you're okay with it. All right? I really, if you don't remember anything else, there's 2 things you have to remember today. One, if something hits the fan, call Chris or his office. 2, remember that your students are going to struggle sometimes in ways they have not before. And the one phone call or text or whatever that's going to be the hardest for them to share that with is going to be with you. And they have to know that all you want to know from them is, are you trying to figure it out? And are you getting the resources you need to figure it out? That's what you're going to hear about today, is all the resources that are available for them to figure it out. You're going to have to provide that sustenance, if you will, for them to make that leap from self-doubt to self-confidence. So if you don't remember anything else today, remember that. How many of you, is this your first kid going to college? All right, right. Because see, most of the people for the second kid, they don't even come, right? So this is a new thing for you, and I get it, but it is really important for you to maintain that view that your job is to support them as they find this path, which will be challenging for many of them. So the rest of my job now is to turn this over to people who actually know something about the undergraduate program. So let me just end by thanking all of you for trusting us with your children. This is a big deal. We get that, all right? And I think for everything you'll hear today and going through the years, our job is to earn that trust. So thank you very much.
All right, we also have Professor Jay Turner here. Jay is the Vice Dean of Engineering Education for the McKelvey School of Engineering. Jay and I meet about once a week, and so we're coordinating the logistics aspect and the advising aspect of our office with the academic aspect of the classroom. And Jay's going to come up and say a few words. Please help me welcome up Jay Turner.
Thanks, Chris. So as Chris mentioned, I'm the school's Vice Dean for Education, which means I carry Aaron's water. And I'd just like to make a few remarks from the perspective of the faculty, because I'm also a professor of energy, environmental, and chemical engineering, all right? And I've been on the faculty for 30 years now. And I must say, this is actually a fun time of year, because we focused exclusively on the research during the summer. As Aaron mentioned, we're an R1 institution. Research is very important to us here on the faculty. But also, this is that time of renewal, if you will. Just walking across campus today and seeing people who weren't graduate students in their 4th or 5th year with their head down, wondering if it's going to end any time in the next decade or so. It's very refreshing. Also, though, would like to share with you that the faculty are very committed to the teaching mission here as well as the research. And one of the characteristics you will find here is almost no classes are taught by anyone other than faculty. For example, teaching assistants or graduate students. It's the faculty. Now, do we make an exception? Of course. In my department 2 years ago, we had a very seasoned doctoral student who went through a training program, taught one course with guidance because that graduate student was planning to go into a faculty position, and that helped groom them well. But those are the exceptions to the rule. You get the faculty. Now, we have two flavors of faculty here. We have the faculty like myself who do research and teaching. We also have faculty called what we call our teaching faculty, and they are dedicated to the teaching mission exclusively of the school. From the student perspective, it's seamless who these are. But I really want to point out these teaching faculty, how it complements the faculty who also do research, because their whole breathing and life is focused on the educational mission. And they're not just in the classroom teaching, they're innovating. So for example, every year, the American Society of Engineering Education has a national conference. It was in Portland in June. 6 of our McKelvey faculty went, all teaching faculty, all giving presentations about innovative things to be doing in the classroom. One of those faculty in my department, Janie Brennan, is in charge of the chemical engineering division of the American Society of Engineering Education. She's leading the whole national division. These are the types of things that we're bringing to the classroom, not just our professional domain experience, not just our research experience, but really the cutting edge ways that we teach. And that's going to change a lot during your students 4 year with this little thing called artificial intelligence, right? It's dramatically changing how we're going to do business, and we're doing our best to not just keep pace with it, but to even try and get ahead of it in the educational context. So on behalf of the faculty, welcome, and certainly look forward to working with your students over the next several years.
So now I just want to share a subset of the information that we're going to share with your sons and daughters tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. And Dean Bobick and Jay Turner will also be there to kick off that meeting with them. We start off with the Engineer's Creed after Dean Bobick and Jay give their presentations, their introductions to them. And this in-council is our umbrella student group that covers all of engineering. We have a lot of specialty engineering groups. And first thing that we do is we have what we call a mini induction ceremony in engineering, where we welcome, the students are welcoming the other students to engineering, and they all are going to get a new Warshoe branded hat that says McKelvey Engineering on it. And then we have them all stand and rise, and here's a picture of last year's induction ceremony on the top right of the screen. And they all raise their right hand and they give the Engineer's Creed. It's a very positive, this is really the Engineer's Creed that exists out there, and how we would like the engineering professionals to conduct themselves throughout their lives. The first thing I really hammer on with them are these things here, and I go through each bullet point separately, because if they don't have a strong foundation, with themselves, they're not going to be successful here academically. So having some good time management tools, if they're on medication of some sort, a lot of students arrive here and they decide not to take their medication, and then that can often get them in trouble. These are just really fundamental things. When we see students getting into trouble, it's often one of these things listed here. So we're trying to encourage them to stick with the basics so that they can really advance themselves internally and intellectually. Key thing is for them to communicate with us if they're having problems of some sort. If we don't know there's a problem, we can't help them. And if your sons or daughters are having an issue, you can feel free to contact us. Because of FERPA, we're limited as to what information we can share with you about your sons and daughters unless they sign a FERPA statement. But if you know of information or if you have concerns, you can let us know, especially if there's a family emergency where they need to return home. Let us know, and then we can send a note to the professors letting them know that we're aware of the situation that's occurring and the student had to suddenly return home. After going through all these, then I asked them to talk to each other with a person next to them. You know, which one's going to be the hardest for them to do, to get them thinking and talking about it, because some of them find some of this fairly easy, but normally there will be one or two things that they're going to find more challenging to do. So when we see students, and you probably have seen this too, and I love this quote, because a lot of times they think they're doing a terrible job while other peers are doing a great job. And so often, everyone's having some type of struggle, and not to compare themselves. Just because maybe their roommate got an A and they got an A minus, all of a sudden they really tank in terms of how they feel emotionally about what's going on. So they need to set their standard against themselves in terms of trying to improve themselves as they go on and not compare themselves with other people. As humans, that's very difficult to do because we tend to constantly compare ourselves to others. So what is it about Washington University? So if you've been to any of the McKelvey admissions presentations as prospective students, these are the topics that we typically covered. I was at the parent session last night with Student Affairs, where they had an introduction with the parents and with the faculty fellows and some of the administrators that were there, and I had a chance to meet some of you there. I know Friday night, Lisa was there along with Ron Lowy from our office. Somebody asked me, what is your favorite part about being at Washington University for the last 34 years? And I said, for sure, it's got to be the collaborative nature that we have here. There is a real sense of community here, that people care about each other, and that's across campus. It is a very rigorous place. Dean Bobick mentioned the difficulty of getting in. Our admit rate's typically around 10%. So we had 6,500 applicants for engineering and 311 first years coming in. So it is really tough to get in. But that's where we want the competition to end. We want them, when they're here, to be very collaborative. The peer group is amazing. The students here are incredible. We see the things that they do, and we're often just in awe of the things that they're able to accomplish. When you think about, the old saying where if you take the 5 people that you hang around with the most, that's typically what you're going to rise to be like. And with here, it's really easy then to rise because you're around so many talented and gifted people. And sometimes those talents and gifts become even more so the longer that they're here and the more they interact with each other. We really encourage our students to take courses across campus. In fact, we require it. So they have to take at least 18 units in humanities and social sciences. They have big choices to take within that range. A lot of students will pick up second majors and minors in those choices. But it's a chance for them to really not do just math and science, because I think we need creative engineers in the future who can think outside the box. A calculus equation, a physics theory by itself isn't what's going to solve the problems that they're going to face in their lifetimes. It's the creative application of those things. And that comes from imagination. And I think of imagination as being neural stimulation. The more unique and novel ways that you can stimulate the neurons in your brain, the more creative you're going to become. So we want our students to engage in student groups, to athletics, and having second majors and minors all across campus. Dean Bobick mentioned research. Entrepreneurship is probably one of the things I've seen change the most in St. Louis and on our campus in the last decade. It has really flourished in terms of opportunities on campus within different student groups in the Scandalaris Center, which is in this building here. A lot of academic support resources, and then the high retention rates that have been mentioned too. So engineering is an opportunity multiplier, and really wanting to get the students to think early on bigger about what they can do with an engineering degree. You've got that input of the classes. The math and science are real heavy, but then we also want them to take courses across campus, and that engineering education middle part, and the output is the things that they do when they leave. Certainly a good number will do classical type engineering jobs that you think of engineers as doing, but a bunch of them will typically have around 30 a year that will go into medical school, management training programs. And in fact, when the research is done and CEOs of organizations are asked and surveyed, what was your undergraduate degree in? The number one degree listed is engineering and not business. So the engineers tend to rise to leadership roles within organizations as their careers continue. Consulting, entrepreneurship, research, management, finance. Finance is an area that we've seen a lot of students go into. In fact, I think some of our wealthiest alums out there may have been ones that have gone into finance or finance-related areas, graduate school, and then computer-related jobs. So thinking bigger, and then showing them examples of what our graduates have done. So for example, W.E. Murner won the Nobel Prize. When he was here as an undergraduate, he had 3 undergraduate degrees in electrical engineering, physics, and math. He went and got graduate degrees in physics, but he won the Nobel Prize in chemistry. And he had no formal degree in chemistry, but that's where he won his Nobel Prize. And that's an example of how these different areas overlap and support each other. And students then, and people in their careers, they can pull those different areas out for whatever situation they might be in. Allison Todd, alum, she graduated with an electrical engineering degree, a minor in computer science, and a minor in ancient studies. I had no idea we had a minor in ancient studies when I was putting the slide together and saw that. So she's working for Boeing right now, I think in Albuquerque still, as electrical design and analyst engineer. Kalishi was a student I worked with a lot. When he was here, he was the N-Council president for a year, and he was also active in NSBE, the National Society of Black Engineers. He was also a maker technician in our maker space, and if you have a chance, if you're going to go through the engineering buildings in Jubal Hall, if you walk through the ground floor, you'll see the maker space there that students can use. Any student on campus can use the maker space as long as they go through a safety training. And he is in the greater Chicagoland area now as a mechatronics design engineer. Nicole is somebody who did go on to medical school. She had a chemical engineer. More often we see the biomedical engineers go on to medical school, but any major can go to medical school. And she's currently now an emergency medicine resident at Stanford Healthcare. And one of her rotations, she was on a helicopter where she was a flight helicopter doctor. It's a pretty cool photo. I have no idea what that ambulance ride would cost in a helicopter if they had to come and pick you up, but I guess if you really needed it to live, it'd be worth the money. Thomas is one of my advisees. He's currently a senior, and he did a really cool internship with a drone-related company. We're looking at how drones can do medical-related drop-offs. Miranda is a current senior also, double E and second major in systems, minor in computer science, minor in music. Now, one thing I should mention is that as advisors, we encourage students to pursue what they want to do, but we also encourage them not to overdo it. Because sometimes the Warshoe kids are trying to pack as many things in their pockets as they can before they leave. And in reality, no one is going to care that she had a minor in music. It's for her benefit. So sometimes it's better not to get the second majors and minors and just take some courses and then do other things that are available here. So all of the students will think they need to do second majors and minors, but they don't. Sometimes just a couple of courses in an area of interest might be satisfactory for them. Bob Binkham, of course, we're pretty proud of. He's a retired astronaut now, and he had a degree in mechanical engineering and in engineering physics when he was here, and he was the chief of the astronaut office from 2012 to 2015. Emma just graduated. She did her BSMS program, Emma is an example of how you can combine an undergrad degree and a master's degree in one extra year. We have a good number of students who do that every year when they graduate. Getting that master's in one extra year is a very efficient way to add more credentials to yourself long term, which may or may not help you immediately at graduation, but it will certainly make you more competitive for promotion as you go on in your career. And currently she's at Oxford University pursuing a PhD in computer science. Fiona, I remember her very well when she was an undergrad here. She was very active in a lot of space-related activities, and that interest of her carried her forward, and now she's the 100th NASA's flight director. And for those sports fans out there, Ray was a very good computer science student here, also in the baseball team. We have a lot of engineers who are in D3 athletics. I personally love the D3 athletes, the Division III athletes, because the qualities that make for a great athlete make for a great engineer. So they typically have really good time management. They're willing to ask for help if they need it. They take coaching, and they're good team players. So I see a really good fit between engineering and athletics on our campus. And Ray's a good example of that. And I know he was called up to pitch at a game here in St. Louis at least one time. And Lucy Cheadle, she was very, very active in athletics when she was a student here. And Jay's actually had a bit of contact with her lately. And Jay, you were saying about the position that she's in now in California. Could you just briefly mention that?
Yeah, so for context, Lucy graduated about 8 years ago. She was the Division III National Steeplechase champion, which was really cool. And she actually was injured 1 year, and so she still had a year of eligibility, and so went on and did a master's at University of Colorado Boulder, which is one of the top track schools in the country, and she ran steeplechase for them. Got a master's in mechanical engineering. She's a chemical engineer by training, but with a very dear friend of mine, and then joined the California Air Resources Board, which is part of the California Environmental Protection Agency. And I was sitting in an Airbnb in London watching track and field during the Olympics and thought, I wonder how Lucy's doing. And so we actually talked 2 weeks ago. And Lucy recently moved into the headquarters of the California EPA. She now reports to the deputy secretary, so there's only one layer between her and the head of the California EPA. And she has two things in her portfolio, and one of them is international agreements on climate change between the state of California and other countries. So she's actually in Mexico this coming week, where the state of California wants to sign a memorandum of agreement with Mexico and Cal EPA on moving forward on some climate change mitigation strategies. So nice example again of one of our students.
Thank you, Jay. Brag about our students, but also to give the students, our current incoming students, a wide variety of perspective in terms of things that you can do with an engineering degree. And Kendall Gretsch, biomedical engineering, graduated and has been very active in the Olympics. She had spina bifida, and so she is in the Paralympics. And she's currently one of 17 Olympians in that category that are who are competing right now this summer. And finally, I like to talk about John Bruick. John Bruick was one of our full tuition Langsdorff scholars. I mean, he was summa cum laude, mechanical engineer, undergrad, master's in mechanical, minor in aerospace, minor electrical, minor robotics, minor in music, a real underachiever. And nearly a 4.0. I mean, this is the kind of guy you would think of that's going to NASA next. He is the head backcountry ranger in Denali National Park, and that's his wife, and they're both backpack rangers. So I love this because it shows people doing things that they really want to do in life. I can imagine a scenario when John may have been in high school and he said, Dad, I want to be a park ranger. And he said, no, you're not, you're going to be an engineer. So he came here, did an engineer, and then became a park ranger. I don't know that happened, but I can imagine a scenario like that. John's a great guy, and I see all kinds of pictures on Facebook with him in different times of the seasons in Alaska. You can tell he's really loving life. And that's, I think, so important because we want our kids to be successful. We know that an engineering degree will help them be successful, yet that might not be where their joy is. My own daughter, when she came to WashU, she started as in Olin Business School. I was thrilled because I knew that she would get a great job with a degree from Olin here. And after a semester, she said she hated it. She didn't like the other business students because all they cared about was money. She changed to arts and sciences and became a women and gender studies student. And of course, my wife and I were thinking, what is she going to do with this degree when she graduates? She worked for a few years, and now she's finishing up her doctorate in occupational therapy. This week, she goes for an externship for part of the program, and she's going to be in Manhattan working at 2 different homeless shelters for men and applying occupational therapy there, doing her passion, which is what she loves to do. So as a parent, that's what makes me happy, to see her being happy and having an enriched life. Of course, the really great news, if your kids do stay in engineering, they've got great opportunities for great jobs ahead of them. We see the tremendous job options that they have and their career progressions that they do throughout their lives. And which is what we wish for our kids to have, is successful but also happy lives. Just to put in perspective, how many engineering students are there compared to the rest of the majors on campus coming? Incoming, we're about 17% of the undergraduate students. Outgoing at graduation, we typically represent about 20% of the students, undergraduates, graduating. So we typically are a net importer of students from across campus. In any given semester, the last few years, we've had about 80 students come in a semester and only 12 leave engineering. A lot of those are coming into computer science and engineering, but a lot of them are doing other things too, such as chemical or biomedical or mechanical engineering. We also have a great engineering dual degree program with liberal arts schools around the country. We've had for 50 years. Students coming in from there also add to that 20% number. We have about 130 of those students coming in this year. So in terms of a breakdown of what our snapshot looks like, right now we're at 311. This was as of Monday. This will probably drop 1 or 2 between now and the semester starting. 6% international, 41% women, 29% underrepresented, 58% women and or underrepresented. Now, it used to be you would go to an engineering school and you'd see a bunch of white guys there and not much else. So we're very pleased to have so much more representation within the School of Engineering, which is, what we're doing here is better than the national average. National average, it's 18 to 22% women in engineering. So we're very pleased. In terms of majors coming in, I sometimes almost hate to show this slide, but this is an accurate snapshot of where our students stand now. This will change over time, so people will move around. Typically, about 1/3 of the students, after they start taking classes, will change to other engineering majors or other things outside of engineering. We want them to do that. We don't have limitations on number of majors within how many students can be within certain majors. We also have some applied science degrees. If students decide that they really want something more flexible, we have some applied science degrees in some areas which offers a lot more flexibility for the students to pursue. I mentioned that to you, so in case they mentioned to you, engineering is so rigid in terms of the course requirements. I want something more flexible. Tell them to go talk to your 4-year advisor about looking at the applied science degrees. So we really believe every student that joins us should be able to graduate with an engineering degree. So we're not trying to weed anybody out once they're here. We take a lot of pride in our retention rate, and we want them all to be successful. Again, it's a strong sense of collaboration and support here in our campus. And a really great example of that, this is a center that Dean Bobick has created since he's been dean here. It's the Women in Engineering Center. They've got their own office, and there's a lot of programming that's done. It's led by Christine Dearmont, who does a great job. They can have mentoring programs with industry. They have a lot of connections. They have a leadership society. So we encourage the students to get involved with the center. So our office is Engineering Undergraduate Student Services. We have a really good website with a lot of links to a lot of information. We deal with advising, with admissions, with really the full range of aspects of the undergraduate student experience. So that we're trying to encompass the whole life cycle of the student through us. A lot of times, we may not know the answer to a student's question, but we know who to direct the student to for the answer. You're going to hear three terms on campus from different parties. You're going to hear about mentoring. And I think of mentoring as being a more situation-specific situation. So like there's peer mentors on campus, which help students adjust to, like a WUSA. You probably heard from the WUSAs. They're like a situation to help students get adjusted to the South 40. There's also employer mentors that we have and alum mentors that help students figure out what to do. You're going to hear coaching, career coaching. And coaching is a more general, where it's trying to get the students to understand what they want and then to guide them in the direction that they want to go to. And then there's advising, and that's usually to help get them from point A to point B. That's what our focus is really in our office, although we do overlap. Certainly we do advising, we do coaching, and we do mentoring, but our primary worry or concern or focus is to make sure the student, when they land here, are able to satisfy degree requirements and to graduate. And we spend a lot of time doing that. When students register, we're looking at their registration worksheets. When the seniors are about to graduate in January, before they come back to campus, we're looking at all their degree audits to make sure that they're in the right classes to be able to graduate if that's what they think they're going to be able to do. So here's our advisors here. So your sons and daughters all have someone attached in our office to one of these people. At their parent event last night, several parents came up to me unsolicited and just said, hey, I just mentioned what a great job the four-year advisor has done with my son or daughter since I've been here. In fact, one of them, Michael, had called out Kim Cummins in particular and said Kim was over the top helpful in connecting their daughter with faculty who had questions about certain things. So that's what we want to hear. We want to hear that the four-year advisors are hyper helpful in terms of getting them adjusted and then connected to other parts of campus. We also have other folks within our office who are helpful. We have a suite of 5 registrars that help the students get to graduation and with their enrollments. And I will mention too, we've got a new system coming online next year, which is called Workday Student. So your students have spent the summer learning WebStack. And WebStack is a very old system. It's a homegrown system. It's outlived its time, and we are moving towards a new system. We've spent years focused on and building out this new one. So students will still register next semester using WebStack for the spring semester, but then in the spring semester, they will use Workday Student as they register for the fall semester. So you may hear about that. All the course numbers are going to change too. And for those of us who've been here a long time, who have all these course numbers memorized, that's going to be as big of a challenge for us old timers as we're learning these new course numbers as dealing with the new system. The new students will probably get the new system way faster than we will, but it'll be a partnership and for all of us to get them registered and with the new stuff. So students will also have an academic faculty advisor. So a faculty advisor is attached to a department. You know, we ask the students before they came in, what do you think you want to major in? Give us your best guess right now. You can always change that later on. And then we give them a faculty advisor into that area. And that faculty advisor then will change as the student interests change if they change to another area of engineering. But their four-year advisor will be a stable point for them for their entire 4 years within McKelvey. We talk a lot about the different resources with them that are available. So like within our office, the four-year advising, we have free tutoring through our office that students can come to, especially with the first-year courses. We want the foundation that they come in with to be super strong and for them to come in and early on, if they're having problems in physics and math, those two areas are the biggest areas that we have requests for in our tutoring program, but also chemistry and also biology in the entry-level engineering courses. There is a help room, math help room, around the corner from our office that any student can walk in during the day and get help if they're having problems with math. And then there's a wide variety of different help that's available throughout campus. There's a very robust mental health support. There's 3 different slides which talks about mental health support resources that students can have access to while they're here. And sometimes the hardest part is just getting them to use them. So I hate to be generalist, but often it's the male engineer who thinks that they can think their way through it, and the ones that are least likely to get the help when they need the help. So please do encourage your sons and daughters to get the help there if they need it through the campus resources. In terms of engineering orientation events, so we mentioned all these, so you're going to know what they're going to cover too. Our first meeting with them is tomorrow morning at 10. Then we have a Career Center engagement panel with them from 1 o'clock, and we have a Career Center person here. Actually, we have 2 Career Center related people here that will be on the panel. Then we have a 4-year advising meeting with the 4-year advisors and group meetings with us in the afternoon, tomorrow afternoon. Also a research panel. So we've got faculty and students there that have done research. So if your sons and daughters are thinking about doing research or have a possible interest, have them come and hear the research panel to hear more specifics and how they can engage that. Jay, I think you're on the panel this year. Yeah, thank you. I think Tuesday is really cool. And I hope that they really appreciate that they have an opportunity to really hit every engineering department. And we've got it set up so that they can go from one to the other. We'll have some students that'll hit every single one of the departments to hear from them. And this is where we'll see students then change majors. So they might go to a faculty session or a department session and hear what they're doing in that department, and then decide, hey, I'd rather switch from this major over here to this major over there. So encourage them to hit the department sessions, which gives them an overview of all the areas of engineering. And then on Wednesday, because we have a good number of students who are pre-health, could be pre-med. We have students that go to dental school too. They can go to a pre-health meeting. And the top rated orientation session every year from our students is the engineering current student panel. And that's where we have current students up on the stage talking to the new students. We leave the room, have no idea what they're telling them, but it always ends up being one of the top rated sessions of orientation for the engineering students. And then finally, we've got a lunch for them. They've got an email that told them what their location is. And this is similar to what we call cheap lunch here, where N-Council on many Wednesdays throughout the semester offer a cheap lunch to students and faculty and staff on campus. Finally, the last orientation event, it's McKelvey related, the first day of classes. This is the only time we can really fit it in that evening. We have a McKelvey activity fair where we have all the different student groups that are engineering related be in Lapata Hall. We have an ice cream truck that they can go and get ice cream. They can hear it from the different student groups and sign up to be on their email list, and they can tie-dye a t-shirt if they want to with N-Council. Lots of ways to get involved in campus. You're hearing, this is a theme you're hearing, I know, and a lot of different student groups within McKelvey that the students can get involved in. These groups will then be at the activity fair that Monday evening that I mentioned. Warshu Racing is a very popular one, for example, where they take a race car and build it from scratch every year, and they go to Detroit and race it against other universities. They did pretty well this year. I know that they passed every single event. There's multiple events that you have to pass, and this may have been the first year they passed every event. Design Build Flight is another group that actively goes out to competitions every year. Study abroad. A lot of students are interested in study abroad, and I think they should be, because it's a great opportunity to learn about other cultures. Some of the research has shown that a student who's had, or somebody who's had a study abroad experience, scores higher in creativity. And again, it's because they've been exposed to a different culture, maybe a different language, and seeing how other people live. It's very eye-opening for a lot of us when you have that first abroad experience. For students who have a tough time maybe fitting in study abroad, our study in Summer in London program that Melanie started for us for a number of years. Melanie will be up on the panel here in a minute. It's a 4-week program. We had 24 students, Mel? Yeah, we had 24 of our rising sophomores attend Summer in London last year, so your sons and daughters may be asking you about this option. So I'm going to wrap it up there. That's a short summary of the things that we're going to be talking about for an hour and a half. with the students tomorrow morning. I now would like to invite up our panel to come up, and we would like to answer your questions. So please give our panel some walking music as they come up on the stage. And we'll start by having the panel introduce themselves and talk a little bit about what they do. And we've got an awesome student up here in the panel in addition. Jay, we'll start with you.
Jay Turner, the Vice Dean for Education and also a professor of energy, environmental, and chemical engineering.
Hi everyone, my name is Melanie Osborne and I have been in engineering student services for, I think it's 19 years and on campus longer than that. And I am one of the four-year advisors. I also manage study abroad for engineering students and work with industry mentor programs, and I get to organize orientation.
Hello, I'm Jessica Allen, and I am one of the assistant deans and four-year advisors here at McKevely School of Engineering. I also support the pre-med students, so those lovely students that Dean Bavick was mentioning. They will get to work with me along with Ashley Gitterice, who isn't here today, and Dana Gantz. I also support the first-generation limited income students with Lisa Gillis Davis. So if you have a first-gen student, they'll get to work with me.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Caitlin Salee. I am a rising senior in biomedical engineering, have a minor in psychological and brain sciences over in art sci, and then I'm also the president of the Society of Women Engineers.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Finney. I use she, her pronouns. I am in the Center for Career Engagement, and I lead our technology, data, and engineering career community. So I get to work with your students on everything related to careers. I'm not actually in the engineering office, but we work very closely. And I am an alum of the School of Engineering as well.
Hello, my name is Kelly Delphos. I'm the Director of Industry Relations in the McKelvey School of Engineering. So my role is more external facing, meaning I work with companies to build partnerships for recruiting our students, engaging with our faculty on research, and working with them in the classroom on projects. Happy to be a resource today, and I just want to throw a plug out there. If any of your companies have any interest in potentially engaging with McKelvey, see me after our session today.
So we have about 20 minutes available for us here before the next activity takes place. Who has the first question? Oh. So the question relates to how professors grade their courses, if it's bell curved or absolute. I'll let Jay Turner, our Vice Dean for Engineering Education, take that one.
We actually take a very careful look at grades every semester across the whole engineering school. And also can just say that I'm not aware of any faculty in engineering using a classical bell curve. It may exist, but I'm not aware of any, and I haven't seen data that reflects that anyone's doing that. Typically, what we're doing is grading based on what we consider an appropriate level of performance to earn the letter grade. And indeed, on my first day of class next week, I'm going to lay out to the students that I've taught this course more than a dozen times. At this point, I am very well calibrated for what earns an excellent, above average, average, and so on. And the key is during the semester giving them constant feedback on how they're doing so they don't get a surprise at the end, but definitely not grading on a bell curve.
Jay teaches a really cool course called Green Engineering. It's very popular with the students. Yes. Yes, the more flexible options within engineering, the applied science degrees. So the applied science degrees, there's some, so chemical engineering, electrical engineering, systems engineering, mechanical engineering have applied science options, and the students have a lot more choice and flexibility in terms of which courses that they take within those. For example, mechanical engineering is probably the most flexible, where it's 30 units in mechanical engineering. And then that's the degree program there. Of course, there's prerequisites they have to take a lot of times to take the courses. We see a lot of students, systems engineering is a good example where I see students combine that with finance or supply chain management. Jay? Yeah, please.
It's a calibration point. Most degree programs in arts and sciences, like anthropology and so on, it's 30 credits within the major, and then other courses and perhaps requirements. So our applied science degree programs really taste and smells a lot like an art side degree in terms of the amount of time you're spending, or minimum amount of time you're spending in your disciplinary area, and in terms of having flexibility.
Yeah, I guess a key point of awareness for students, if they do the applied science degree, if you want to become a professional licensed engineer, you really need the full-blown degree, where the students who know, which is a lot of the students who don't want to become licensed professional engineers, the applied science degree fits in.
I think that's one of the great things to talk to your four-year advisor about, and also your faculty advisor. If your student has questions, we explain it all the time, and the faculty advisors can also speak from the faculty perspective about the differences in those degree programs.
Yes? Oh. Interesting question. What percentage of our students do summer school? I have never pulled that data, but I know that we have a number that will take them back home and some that will do it here. Melanie, do you have a feel for that at all?
No, I think most students do take the courses at a home university, or we have a lot of students who do summer study abroad to get required courses abroad, especially humanities and social science.
So I spent 16 years at Georgia Tech before I came here. All my degrees are from MIT. Sorry. Couldn't help myself, sorry. There are schools where if the students did not take courses during the summer, they would not finish in 4 years. That is not here. Our students, in fact, Georgia Tech had this accretion that more and more students were taking 5 years to graduate, and really it shouldn't be. And so our students fit in 4. Sometimes our students will take courses in the summer either because it was convenient, it's a different kind of course, it's a summer abroad. So the vast majority of them are doing it not because it's graduation compelled, et cetera. The one exception to that is we have a lot of students, usually about 80 to 100 a year, who decide to do the BSMS program, so bachelor's and master's. They figure that out typically somewhere near the end of their junior year, and they start figuring out, how can I finish my BSMS in as short amount of time as as short amount of time as possible. And so they'll start taking those graduate courses. And so then they'll take some courses in that summer especially the summer after their senior year, which is right before their first master's. And many of them will get a BS and an MS in basically 4.5 years because they added a summer kind of thing. So they leverage it as opposed to need it.
We do have a very robust transfer course website. We're a database. We've probably 30,000 courses that have been evaluated by faculty here that have been approved for transfer from other institutions around the country.
Hi. Do you have any program for internship of co-op during summer or lab research internally? And how is that? It wasn't clear to me in the presentation that you do have that.
summer research and internships
So,
and co-ops?
yep, I was thinking internship to expose the students to the workplace, like in companies or engineer firms or anything of that nature, and how that is evaluated as part of the program.
Sure. Thank you.
So yeah, Center for Career Engagement, that's what we work on, right, is getting your students exposure to companies. So definitely we want them all to be thinking about internships and co-ops and then what they're gonna do after graduation. I didn't catch if there was a specific question there, but yeah, encourage them to come and meet with us. We don't need to be their first stop. They're gonna hear and see representatives from our office this week at multiple touch points so that they know we're here. But we want them to get settled on campus, right? They don't need to be thinking about their next step yet. They wanna get settled here. But we do want them to come in and meet with us and start talking about that, maybe later in the semester, before next summer. But we'll have a lot of opportunities. There's career fairs, we're gonna call them career expos, in case you hear that word. We have those twice a year, once a semester, and then a lot of other opportunities where companies are on campus or virtual options to interact with companies.
Caitlin, do you want to mention anything about your internships that you did 2 summers?
Sure. Yeah, so coming to college, I knew I wanted to go into industry afterward. So starting my sophomore fall, I started going to info sessions that were pretty open that Kelly would organize to hear from specific companies on their internship programs, and ended up getting an internship with Abbott. So I interned there last summer in Virginia, and then this past summer in Southern California, and both have gone very well. I went to the Career Center to prep for my my interviews, to prep my resume, all that sort of thing as well.
Honestly, the biggest challenge I see, I'm thinking about my own daughter when she was here, trying to get her to go use the Career Center.
From last year to this year, AI has made big advances. How is AI in this regard affect our plan, how schools plan to teach, how the kids are going to learn, how they're going to make career choices that make them successful not a year from now, 10, 20, 30 years from now?
Okay, who's going to wheel in the beer that we're going to drink for the next 6 hours while I answer that question? And Dean Bobick might also have some comments to put on this. This is really near and dear to our heart right now, and actually it's center stage in our most recent strategic plan in terms of educational initiatives, that together with experiential learning being the other big education-related aspect of our strategic plan. There's two answers, there's two prongs to that. First of all is this concept of teaching with AI. And how are the students using it, and how are we going to use it in the classroom? Right now, we're in the process of figuring that out. For example, we have a visitor coming to campus who's led an initiative at another school in 2 weeks to shed light on that. Many of us are involved in a reading group that'll be taking place this fall around a book called Teaching with AI. The bottom line is we have some faculty who are already bringing it into the classroom. Others are just getting their feet wet. And there's a small number that are still intimidated, and we're trying to get them over that hump. That's the bottom line. So we're sort of have faculty in 3 buckets. Our tech writing courses, for example, they've embraced it. A few mechanical engineering courses, they've embraced it, and so on. So that's one aspect, is how we're going to use it in the classroom. The other aspect, and this is really important to us, and we've been having meetings regularly about this and moving forward, is how do we prepare our students for a career where this is going to be front and center with their experience? That is, it's going to be a tool in their toolbox, just how, in the past, computing or programming was a tool in their toolbox. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, working with generative AI needs to be a tool in their toolbox. And it's going to evolve dramatically over the course of their career. Heck, it's going to evolve dramatically over the next 4 years while they're here. And so we're asking every department, but with a lot of help that we're providing, to figure out how to either make sure that all students graduating with a degree from that department are proficient, not just literate, in this world of artificial intelligence and machine learning, even if you're a mechanical engineer or an environmental engineer. Or in some departments, it might be providing rich opportunities to reach that proficiency point. Like in biomedical, we already have a minor in biomedical engineering data science, right? So biomedical data science, that's already stood up within biomedical engineering. So the bottom line is we're moving fast and furious on it right now, and a lot of it's talking with folks in industry about how it's being used and how they think it's going to be used going forward. Aaron?
Yeah. So my background actually is in computer science, computer vision, AI. As my wife likes to say, I got out of AI just in time not to make any money. I actually had a meeting with all the department chairs and a bunch of faculty leaders and Jay to talk about the impact of AI on the future of engineering and how we needed to work it within the curriculum. That was November 2019. Okay, and so, and in fact, it was a great talk. I mean, it was, well, I think it was a great talk. It was a really good, because I met, and we actually had embraced this idea of figuring out how to work, not so much in the pedagogy, but in the curricular elements. Some of you may remember that universities got hit upside the head March 2020, and basically it was all hands on deck just to keep the trains running on time. We had 3 weeks to get 250 engineering courses remote, including laboratory courses. So one of the things that fell off was the redoing of the curriculum around AI. And I don't know about the rest of you in the world you came from, we managed to push through COVID pretty well. In fact, WashU did a great job getting through COVID. One of the losses was a bunch of nascent things fell off, right? Because we were really scrambling to just, do the main mission. So the only thing that's really changed in AI, and this is from someone from AI, is the power of generative AI in enabling people to produce stuff, which is different than the notion of AI in helping you to discover stuff. The discover stuff has been going on for a very long time and was fundamental to a lot of what we do in engineering, right? You're trying to design a new material for a particular anode or cathode in a battery, and you need a particular type of material property. How do you find a new material to do that? Well, that's a discovery problem, and AI has been fundamental to that. How do you design something in a particular way? AI has been fundamental. But now, and this is the first stage that Jay was talking about, there's pedagogical implications in terms of how do I think about teaching and how do I think about learning when I can use so much generative stuff? One last comment. Somebody asked me, do we let folks use Copilot and other kinds of things for writing code in the classes? And the answer is, of course, because every job that's out there is going to expect them to do this. So we have to work on both making sure they know how to leverage the tools, but also have the fundamental knowledge underneath so that they understand, the ins and outs of what's going on. It's that generative piece that has transformed the education landscape really in the last 18 months. One of our interesting challenges is all of my faculty got all of their PhDs before any of this happened, right? And so there is a lot of, and we've been bringing in folks who are newer, you know what, fine. We have, and this is where the notion how research touches your education. So there's this, one of the things they'd like to be able to do in the medical world is understand the flow of fluid through your heart, okay? It has all sorts of implications. Now, you can actually measure this directly, but it requires some very sophisticated imaging, complex machinery to do that. What they would like to be able to do is just be able to use essentially an advanced form of an EKG, right, so a little more number of electrodes, to then be able to know the fluid flow through your heart. So what they have is they have some data of people where they've done both the EKGs and the actual flow, but I'm talking about hundreds of examples, not millions, okay? So they have that. They have computational fluid dynamics. The fluid going through your heart has to obey computational fluid dynamics. And then they can take a static CT or just a CT of your heart, so I know the geometry of your heart. So then you want to be able to take the geometry of your heart, the computational fluid dynamics, plus a reasonable amount of machine learning to then be able to make this ability to say how the heart, how the fluids are flowing through your heart based upon this advanced EKG. So we just hired a brand new faculty member. She just got her PhD a year and a half ago, all right, and been doing a postdoc. She's going to know more about the introduction of machine learning into mechanical engineering and computational fluid dynamics than any of my senior faculty. And one of the reasons we're so excited about her joining us is, well, you can imagine which courses she's going to start impacting like Thursday. Okay, so that's the evolution.
And just, your students are coming at the right time to ride this wave here. We are committed that by next fall, for example, our 2 engineering mathematics courses that follow after calculus are going to be much more computationally based than they've ever been in the past, and particularly through the lens of the skills that you need to be doing AI and ML type things, for example. So your students are coming in at exactly the right time. The key is for like me as a faculty, when your student gets to an upper division course, and we want to expose them and give them experience using these tools, they need a certain skill set coming in, and that's what we're scaffolding into the first 2 years right now, that they'll have that so that we don't have to teach them that as juniors and seniors. We know what they know, and then we can help them work on, well, how's it actually done in chemical engineering? How's it actually done in mechanical engineering?
A much simpler question. You talked about being an R1 university, and that's fantastic. How do first year students get to know about research opportunities, and how does the university encourage them? Because a lot of them, like you said correctly, might not even know many of the foundational ways to do research. And of course, they're very excited to do it. So I'm just curious to know how they get introduced to that fantastic opportunity that they have here.
So, hopefully those students, I would like to see every single of our first-year student attend our research orientation fair, our panel with our faculty there to learn about it from that standpoint. But then that's one of the reasons, too, they have a faculty advisor where they can talk to their faculty in their area about what possible research opportunities might exist within that area. We see a lot of our students across the disciplines also work in the medical school here at WashU, where they have tremendous numbers of research opportunities. And they love the engineering students because a lot of times the researchers in the med school don't always have the quantitative tools in their back pocket that an engineer has that they can bring to that lab. Jay, anything else that you'd like to add?
Nothing other than just it's really important for your student to be chatting with their 4-year advisors, their faculty advisors. What you're not going to find is a lot of postings about undergraduate research experience, because the approach that most of the faculty take is if a student comes and they're interested and it appears they'll have the bandwidth, and that's one reason I sort of caution first year research, or at least first semester. There's a lot of other cool stuff to explore here and get acclimated with before you jump into the research domain. But we create opportunities in groups. So for example, I'll have 3 undergraduates working in my lab. Only one of them is on a project that I really foresaw. The other 2 came to me, have interest, and it's definitely in our domain work. It's not like it's tangential. It's part of our funded projects. But I wasn't looking for someone, but they bring some added value and can really provide some benefit, so we brought them in. So that's one of the challenges, is we don't often advertise, but we create opportunities on a case-by-case basis. And as the dean mentioned, most of our students do it. So there really are opportunities.
So I think we have time for one more question, but a lot of us will stay here after the session to be able to answer individual questions. Yes.
When do the students opt to pick up a second major or minor? When would they?
So some of them
when
are
do they
already
need to
coming
sign
in
up?
thinking about it. Some of them it'll be, second semester. It's really throughout their time here. There's not a set time to add a second major or minor. Of course, they will need enough time to get those courses in. But again, sometimes students don't need it. Sometimes they just need to take some courses of interest in that area. I know you had your hand up too.
Okay. I'm going to try to remember all those questions. Easy one first, transportation. Yes, there are many ways to get around. I think I lived in Umrath, so kind of in the middle of the 40. My walk from Umrath to campus was to the engineering campus took 20 minutes max, usually 15. So that's okay. I also had a bike that was very helpful. There's a shop on Big Bend. That was great. Society of Women Engineers. We have like kind of 3 branches of what we do. So first would be professional. We have a lot of professional development and exposure resources. So that looks like panels. It also looks like our national conference that happens in the fall. Lots of things going on there. Lots of partnerships with these 2 ladies as well. Then we have our social, like internal engagement, helping people build community with each other, learn from each other, connecting underclassmen with upperclassmen, all that sort of thing. So that's fun events, that's movie nights, that's ice cream socials, all that sort of thing spread throughout the year. Last component would be community engagement. That's where we're partnering with schools in the St. Louis area to do tutoring or STEM exposure, STEM engagement activities. We're working on a partnership right now to launch this fall. That's also working with like Girl Scouts. We bring Girl Scouts to campus every fall to have like a little fair day with like an alumni speaker and all that sort of thing. So there's lots of ways to be involved with that. And some of my best friends came from that, and we're really excited. We grew the exec board this year, so we're really looking to get a lot of engagement from our freshmen. Last was the Women in Engineering Center. So Christine loves working with the Women in Engineering clubs. They're sweet, but also plenty of others. So we partner very closely. Sometimes she'll help with organizing our events, sponsoring our events. She has there was a photo of like the kickoff for every semester that she does, which is really fun. So she does a great job of connecting all the women in engineering across all the clubs in McKelvey as well.
I'm going to pull Dean's prerogative and say one last thing before wishing you all adieu. Chris had talked a little bit about a lot of work that we do for first-gen students and students who maybe come from backgrounds that are just not as familiar with the nature of what a university like us would be. And for a variety of reasons, those students struggle a little bit if they do not get connected. And there's all sorts of data why, research into it, et cetera. But at the end of the day, they have to sort of get connected to those resources. I have no idea how many of your children are first gen or from different backgrounds, but I'm going to guess, given the numbers of students that we have, it's a not inconsequential number. Absolutely tell them that A, they belong here. We don't make mistakes at admission. They all belong here. 2, they're going to have questions that their friends don't seem to have, and that's okay. They come from people who spent 4 generations going to Ivy League universities. So these students will have not gotten that background. They will succeed if they reach out, if they get connected. We didn't get any questions about that. I understand sometimes people don't like to ask questions about that. It is absolutely an opportunity and imperative. So we've put a lot of work. Lisa, raise your hand. Lisa has helped stand up Jesse, we have a bunch of folks who are working in that space, but your students have to engage with them. So I don't want to end on a downer. I'll just say your students are going to be great. Again, thank you all for coming. Can we please give a round for both Chris and his folks? All right. And we'll see you around. Some of you come back for Parents Weekend. I won't be here. Anyway, have a great rest of your day.